Wait, you have been my idol for 30 years, and then we've been friends, for a while as well. So I'm so glad that we are doing this podcast. Welcome to New Show.
Hi, Howie. Thanks for inviting me. This is fantastic. I'm glad that we got a chance to talk, on this
Yeah, I'm
amazing.
assuming that you are talking at your office, right? Conviva. First thing first, this is New Show. I was wondering, did you happen to have a chance to try out the new browser yet?
I did, and I downloaded.
And then I'll just preview something real quick here. We are actually going to integrate with OpenClaw, and we are going to have a lot more fantastic things to show you soon. So maybe another time. But anyhow, so the reason we kind of started talking is because, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, you published an article on LinkedIn mentioning about the beautiful design of OpenClaw. You saw the analogy between OpenClaw and then Unix. I would love to have you tell our audience about it. I'm going to, we are going to have a lot of interesting, maybe debate, maybe, I get to learn a lot from you as always. And then the other thing I wanted to tell our audience is Professor Zhang has been a professor at CMU. In the early days, he was a pioneer of the networking, quality of service. And that was something that I was really, really interested 30 years ago. In fact, I applied his PhD, and obviously he rejected me. But he took another student, young Stoic, and then that student, went on, did a lot of amazing things, including founding Databricks. So I always told people that Hui is basically the father of a lot of the distributed computing we have in the industry today. So that's how I would introduce you. Thank you for coming again.
Howie, thank you for Howie. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, the industry has going for a long time. It's amazing that early days, we're working on quality service streaming, the cloud, and the big data analytics,
Yeah,
truly AI. We're talking
truly
agentic,
AI now, right?
right? In fact, used to be we're talking years, now we're talking months, now we're talking days and weeks. Everything every day has news. It's everything progressing so
But
fast.
despite so many things have changed, the article really intrigued me, right? You kind of, put the analogy between OpenClaw and Unix. Tell our audience about what's in your mind, what's your
Yeah.
view, and then we go from there.
Yeah, that's great. So I think OpenClaw, obviously, Peter Steinberg, released this open source code. All of a sudden, it has tremendous, obviously, both, surprised and surprising the surprise, but also to be concerned about the power and the potential abuse of power in terms of security risks. But then I think that we can come back to that functionality part. But if you look at the way how he put that together, obviously, there's a lot of work on how much he live coded and how short period of time he can put everything together. But if I were just to go back to sort of the comparison, in terms of this one person can build a powerful in today's agentic system, you roll up the world to, let's say, 50 years ago.
Roughly.
That's early days, that was, Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson were in Bell Labs. That time, IBM was building, have hundreds of people building, operating systems, at MIT, 20, 30 researchers building Multics over more years. And somehow, these two people, you know, Ken Thompson wrote, a new language called C in the compiler, and Dennis Ritchie just built an entire operating system using the high-level language. And both of them all together, it took them a year. At that time, a year was very, very short. Today, obviously, we're talking about several months of Peter Steinberg's time. But they built a powerful operating system that time on PTP7, I think. But it is probably the most powerful operating system that more than hundreds of people were able to put them together, better than what the MIT researchers, IBM product teams were put together. So, and they were very elegant in certain ways that they're very powerful. On the other hand, is written by a single person in a way, Dennis Ritchie, and also can be understood. So when I was a graduate student, we're learning operating systems. We were reading this book called The Lion's Note, and this guy's Australian professor basically took the Unix code and put some, commentation, annotation on it. And we're just reading it. It's this thick book. It's actually, 200 pages, all the, the boot up code, everything, memory allocator, CPU, everything, CPU scheduler, the entire operating system in a book, and you can read line by line. right? So we studied it, in a semester time. So now what happened? Why would two people can build such a powerful system in a short period of time? Today is Peter Steinberger, built an extremely powerful agent system in a very short period of time. I think that there's some commonalities among them. One is this, I call we call it elegance, right? Elegance, keep it simple and stupid.
That was the elegant was literally the word in my mind in the last 5 minutes. You describe Unix, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, let our let our audience know what you mean by elegant design.
Yeah, and I think that the key here is it's like building a puzzle together, but you have pieces, right? Like a Lego blocks, you have pieces, and then they have very, very powerful but very simple interfaces, right? In the Unix, it would be file descriptors. For example, it was very refreshing that memory can be accessed through file descriptors. Disk can be accessed through file descriptors. Directory is itself is a file. Network, interface is a file.
Everything
So
is a file.
everything is a file. A process is a file. So it's a powerful idea. Once you appreciate that idea, say, "Wow, that's very, very powerful." But then it wasn't done that way because everything was different, right? So if you look at what Peter done for for OpenClaw, very, very similar. So
tell us what is the equivalent of the file or process or pipes you see in Open. Tell us about it.
Obviously he had concept of session. He using CLI interface. And then he also used Markdown files. So I think in the cloud, in Anthropic, is called skills.
And the Markdown is basically the memory, right?
The memory, right? The memory. If you again, as you know, how you've been talking to so many AI people and so much system. If you look at the market diagrams, the people can really decompose the entire AI system into like 20 different blocks. And here's a context engineering, here's a rack database, here's what the memory, there's what was in the model, what's outside the model. I mean, you can really talk about a lot of things. But I think in the Peter Steinberg's design, he used a Markdown. It's just a simple file. It's simple file for both in-session memory and also cross-session memory, per daily memory, and then also long-term memory, right? So I think, and then the primitive on a file you can do is you can do using all the file-related mechanisms, search, for example, grab. You can do all of that. It's understandable by human being. I think what Peter taking advantage of, and also his standard interfaces in terms of talking to all the, sort of messaging interfaces. What he was able to do is he really thought through this is a personal agent. I call it a personal agent. It's very important to distinguish a personal agent versus agent, say, on the what I call the brand agent or the consumer agent on the enterprise side. And because a personal agent serves one person, right? One person, and you can only have so much history and so much memory, so much interactions. And so you can dramatically simplify the problem. And then he picked the right primitive for personal agent. Well, you can learn many similar lessons. For example, the exact design will not apply, for example, for the brand agent. Because if I'm, say, Target or Walmart, I serve millions of consumers, then my memory design will be different and my objectives will be different. And I think that by explicitly zooming in the specific requirement and really understand what the design objectives, he picked the right hammer for the right nail.
Yeah.
Then,
so just let me double click a little bit, right? The Markdown as memory, from your point of view, it's a simplicity, you appreciate it. As opposed to what? As opposed to using database for memory, like as opposed to, can you just give
so
the
let's
audience?
Think about, I think, in the enterprise setting, we say we have a rack database, right? Thinking about people. Yeah, so let's take that as a database, right? A database is a much heavier hammer, right? I will have different embedding algorithms, I have different search algorithms. I mean, you can really go very sophisticated there. And
then now he's basically using Markdown, a file for the memory. What do we lose? And then, but you feel like, hey, even if we lose this is actually has tremendous benefit. So I just want to double click on this.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think agents so far, before the personal agent like Peter has done, most agents were familiar with coding agents. Right? So that's like a coding agent. That's also in a way is a personal agent. If you like a cloud code, there's a lot of similarities in the design. I think that, and then you will have the enterprise agents, because that's really, if the whole industry is talking about enterprise agents, how the enterprise agent can improve productivity of our workers. There you have tremendous knowledge base, right? So, how do I work? If I have an HR agent, I need to have the HR database. If I have a sales agent, I need to access to the sales database. So there's a huge sort of perception in terms of what agent should be. However, the minute you flip the coin, say I need to have a personal agent
Interesting.
helping me, right? That first of all, I have a long-term memory. It's my personal companion, and in fact, it's only my personal companion. If you look at a human being's memory, unfortunately, it's not that long. And also, you look at your activities every day. I know how you have a lot busy schedule than I do, but even I think that if you think about all the logs I need to record what you do, it's not that sophisticated. And so I think that by again trying to have the right hammer solve the right problem, you can
Interesting.
dramatically simplify it.
So that's
And
one example you have been using, Markdown as a memory. And then you also mentioned Bash as syscall. Can you just elaborate this a little bit?
I think that, again, it's the question here is he didn't have MCP. So you can say, look, MCP is sophisticated protocols. But then again, if you just have a, standard interface going through, can be adapted to any messaging uh, apps, which is really human being used to communicate with the machine, then all of a sudden you can dramatically simplify the design also in a it's a very versatile design. We now every day is about AI. AI is the most sophisticated field, and most researchers, AI researchers, I belong to a category of I classify myself as a computer system person. Now, system, the reason we have our own, sort of cult and religion and gods, right? That's why the Unix is sort of is a pinnacle of that, and the partially
Yeah.
is and even internet. I study internet. We say internet. If Scott Shanker were here teaching internet, he would say the most profound thing about internet is have the hourglass of the internet architecture is IP layer. And that's really, again, it's the abstraction layer. How do you, separate the system details from the rest of the functionality using very primitive interfaces? That's sort of the elegance. When we talk about elegance, that we're talking about. So Unix has that elegance interfaces in file descriptors. You think and cloud has that. Yeah, and then now internet has an interface called IP protocol.
Yeah, yeah. The simplicity or the right architecture for the right use case, right? I would totally agree with you. Without IP, internet wouldn't have been where it is today. Still remember 30 years ago, we were debating, not you and I, but the industry is debating IP versus ATM, right? So what
Yep.
a interesting flashback, right? Before Unix, the system was a lot more complex, but Unix, the elegant design. But you are actually attributing the success of OpenClaw to the elegant design. A lot of that is a very Unix-ish in terms of the simplicity, in terms of the taste. So I never thought about it. And then the way you explained it, the moment that you sort of articulated, it was a really refreshing. It was a thing. So thanks for bringing that up. So that's kind of a system design of OpenClaw. And then the other thing you mentioned in your article is the open source part. Maybe you can also elaborate a little bit more too.
Yeah. And I think open source, this one, I also had a personal experience, saw the evolution of it. I think that obviously Unix was done at AT&T. AT&T was the monopoly, the most dominant industry player. But really, Unix, became a household name, or eventually become that success was when it was have a distribution called Berkeley software distribution, through Berkeley. And I have two people, I know personally the two people who made it made it work. One is Sandy Fraser, was the chief scientist of AT&T at that time. And the person on the other side at Berkeley who needed to deal with is Domenico Ferrari, was my PhD advisor. So
Wow.
so these two people made great contributions in the sense because AT&T licensed, gave out their Unix operating system to a university and let them open source it. It was under certain licensing agreement. I think it's a beginning. It was the beginning of the open source movement. Eventually, MIT have so many different systems. They come up with their own licensing agreement. Then obviously from that point on, Linux and the open source foundation and all of that. But the first, if I were to say the first successful open source project that really changed the world was BSD.
Yeah.
Operating
Yeah.
system.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All major infrastructure code are open source.
Yep. When I was applying for your PhD, I was trying to convince you I did some wonderful work for FreeBSD 2.0. I put an IP stack in it, but you didn't, listen to my articulation. But everything works out very well on your side for sure. Um, but as you sort of also alluded in your article, right? Then came Linux, right? Linux was done by one person, Linus
One
Torvalds.
person.
So
Yeah.
now that you mentioned all the story, it just made me to feel like, wow, Peter to OpenClaw is very much like Linus Torvalds to Linux, right? Both are it's going to be both are very profound system started from one person, basically. So that's a very interesting. So we have been talking about the industry we have been talking about one person unicorn because of AI. But apparently, even before AI, there's a one person unicorn, started by Linus Torvalds. Obviously, at that time, he wasn't thinking about monetization, unicorn, all that kind of things. But it worked out, almost the same way. Okay, so this is OpenClaw as we know today, the elegant design, open source, is a big part of the success of Linux, FreeBSD, and then now for Peter, for OpenClaw. And let's talk about the future. What do you think? Maybe you might be biased. FreeBSD or BSD system might be the single most important system for human mankind. Maybe that's in your mind, maybe not. But let's talk about OpenClaw. What do you see? Like Jensen Huang just last few days, he said that this is the most important software. What do you think? Do you agree with Kim?
I'm a very optimistic about OpenClaw, but it's a principle. Now, it's the artifact. Again, I also feel that I'm a conservative person in that sense, right? I'm looking back in Unix saying that it was the most important system, but I have the benefit of doubt of, kind of retrospective, hindsight 2020. I think that OpenClaw, there'll be various variation of OpenClaw. Whether OpenClaw is our open source project with its artifact will be dominant industry, I think it's probably too early to say. I mean, that's just the conservative way talking. I think that the principle obviously will dominate the design for many, many systems. Now, again, even we say Unix, right? It used to be Unix, whatever Dennis Rich wrote Unix. That Unix does not exist anymore. It went to BSD, it went to Linux, it went to Mac OS. So the question here is OpenClaw, I think personal agent, broadly it's an agent program, is going to be extremely, in the whole design and artifact were very, very significant. Now the question here is that going to be the source tree continue to drive the dominant, agents, agentic source tree for the future? And to me, it's a question mark. There could be a Linux moment of that. I mean, there's another rewrite of apply the same principle.
So maybe we can talk about this. What's missing? Like, what's the fundamental potentially issue with OpenClaw you see today?
Yeah, obviously the most obvious one, that this one that to your heart is the security, right? And this is, I think, the power coming of it also is how do you really govern that power is a major issue. Every day there's a news about how people abuse it. There's a very
Email got deleted.
Yeah, that's right. I know Peter saying, his OpenClaw is controlling his household. The question here, if you turn on the fire, I mean, it can burn on your house, right? So I think that you can really imagine those issues. And I think that's I think it's beyond just security. It's really about some kind of rigor in terms of govern the semantics and the functionality of a piece of code. I mean, any code has challenges. I think the agent code, AI-driven agent code is even more challenging is because it has this very non-deterministic thing called LLM. So before AI came to mainstream, before LLM came to mainstream, we're dealing with deterministic code. And I have colleagues who got Turing awards by just can verify the code, right? So formalism has been the mainstream, and we're inventing different programming languages. Need to be type safe, need to be verifiable. So all of a sudden, now we're dealing with totally upside down. We're thinking English is the programming language, and then large language model, which is a black box, probabilistic black box, be the brain. I think that in this world, beyond just a personal agent, any agent, for example, we talk about Conviva, for example, we're helping the brand agents, the consumer-facing agents, the enterprises to design their system to perform their business goals. They have the same challenge. Okay, so how do you, this is again, it's an artifact, it's a code, but it's a probabilistic code. And that means the behaviors are fundamentally non-deterministic. Now, even deterministic code, we could not guarantee correctness. So now this is a probabilistic code, even more powerful probabilistic code. The power plus uncertainty, these two together is always going to be a concern. It's going to be, I think it's not just the security, and security is, one aspect to it is how do you ensure it achieve the goal it wants? So sort of in our working with our customers is about how do you achieve your business outcome, right? How do you ensure your agent achieve your business outcome? In the personal situation, achieve personal outcome. That's the upside. Now, what about the downside? Downside can be, you can really imagine the downside. How do you protect the downside? What's the quote unquote? It's very difficult to imagine what that sandbox look like. That's so because you want to unleash the power, right? So I think that's going to be a fundamental challenge, not just for like open cloud type of agents. It's applied for any AI systems, whether it's
Yeah.
on the personal side or on the enterprise side.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think every time you have a new, technology, whether mobile, cloud, this
Mhm.
case AI or open cloud, it just introduces a new vector and a new sort of attack surface. But the good news, I believe that is just like any issues. I mean, it's solvable. Like 40 years ago, PC became popular,
Yep.
right? The system was unusable without antivirus like a Norton, but then
Mhm.
Norton was introduced. People was able to get over that. I think today, we are going to go through similar thing, right? Not the AV, but equivalent of the AV
Yep.
in the AI system. My team work with a bunch of the teams out there, like a Vassell or whatnot, so that the Vassell developers can, when they, use skills, they can just scan the skills or, get some runtime check, just like, the old days, you see an executable file, you scan it, can you see the behavior? So I think we are going down this, at least my team, we introduced the thing called Agent Trust Hub, ATH, basically provided people a framework to do security right. So as much as I 100% agree with you, security is a big deal. People are apprehensive about it. I'm less worried about it because I feel like, it is going to, we are going to overcome this. I'm actually having a slight different angle I wanted to ask you. When Jason Huang, right, NVIDIA's founder, said that this is the best software he has seen. I mean, clearly there's one reason, because OpenClaw is so token hungry, right?
Yeah.
It can burn probably 1,000x of the GPU,
Yeah.
mankind has produced so far in the next 10 years if everyone started using, OpenClaw. So it's great news for him, for sure. You look at this issue like token hungry, can we contain the cost? Do you think this is viable? How do you see it?
Yeah, it's absolutely a very big question. I think that I'll break down two things. I have a very idealistic vision of the world in the sense that the world will be a lot more decentralized, especially when it comes to personal agents. I think you can easily imagine whether it's your phone or your PC or some smaller hardware devices that you can put all the harness, including a model on top of it with a local GPU. I think then that will be if you the energy on top of it is the electric, so it's basically is a power by solo. Then, you will have a personal device that at least on the edge that more economical, not environmental friendly, and then not killing the earth. If Jensen's selling that chip, he can make money. That would be one on the edge. Then there's the cloud, which is everybody is talking about in the sort of if you believe everybody is going to be in a much more centralized cloud based system and more centralized, and then which there's use case for that. I 100% believe there's use case for that. There's a lot of advantages, but I would said that there at least there are two type of systems. And then if you are a more, as I said, like intelligence, like an enterprise level. If I'm a Walmart, I'm Target, I'm a Wayfair, I'm a United Airlines, Amazon, then you will utilize your enterprise agentic system. Is going to be in the cloud, and that's almost a guarantee. Then the question here about optimization of token usage ultimately, and this is where I feel that here the system researchers for the longest time our goal is to say how do we optimize the system, right? So I think there's a massive room for improvement on that. I think that obviously we're at the frontier of expanding the functionalities. We want to see what's possible, but I think the parallel track is going to how do you optimize it. They're supposed to reduce the per token unit price, but also reduce number of tokens in terms of for the same task. I think there's a massive work to be done there.
Do you are going to cut down the token consumption for the same task dramatically, or it's going to be token cost is going to cut down dramatically?
I think both. I think both
Oh,
dimensions will happen. I really think that's the case. I think that, but the total token growth will continue to grow, right? So this all
right, right. But the efficiency of the token usage will be there.
absolutely.
And then you mentioned that you talked to Young about what topic?
No, I just mentioning here, both are young now. I think he is a big AI researcher, right? I really think, but if you took an X-ray of him, the core is still a system researcher, right? He's a
Yeah,
system researcher applying the AI world, but what is the main thing? There are really two areas for all of us. There are two ways that we do work. One is how do I use AI to help system design? Second is, which he has a major research initiative on that. And then also, how do you, build a system that optimize the AI? So that's a very different, right? So you look at, people at the hardware level, all the way to the silicon level, to the board level, to, everything, every layer, to the machine level, to the cluster level, to the software level, to the compiler level. So again, the whole stack can be dramatically improved. And I think the history of computer science has been, once you understand the workload, you can really dramatically optimize it. I think that it will,
interesting. Once you understand the workload, you can dramatically improve the efficiency. So
yeah.
that's definitely has been true. That's a very good wisdom to share with our audience. Don't worry too much. We are going to do well. Uh, Another thing, another angle of the question is the following. Do you see that OpenClaw is going to run more local on the local device in the long run, or it's going to be in the cloud? The reason I'm asking this question is, this is something also dear to the heart of the Neo users. We actually released the Neo mobile browser, first AI native browser on the planet. And I give you the preview earlier. We are
Yes.
actually looking at putting the OpenClaw integration on it. Obviously, I cannot run OpenClaw on the mobile, so it has to be in the cloud. That's a use case for the cloud. But then, there's also a question, hey, I cannot afford to use all the GPUs, elsewhere. Can I just use my local Mac, powerful GPU and then be done with it, right? That sort of thing. How do you see the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's two vision will play out. I think that in the next few years it will play out. Again, I have no sort of a preference. As said, I would love privacy. I love personal control, and I also believe that you should not burn down the earth. So I think for all those reasons, I would like to see the sort of the pushing the edge to the devices vision at least
Okay.
successful, right? That
Okay.
said, ultimately it's a technology commercial competition in that space. And I will say the other thing I will add a little bit that just my, again, sort of the Conviva perspective on this, because we are helping the large enterprises to,
Yeah, actually take an opportunity to add at least just to tell us what Conviva does first, and then,
yeah,
and then explain.
yeah. So Conviva, we have been, we're helping large brands to improve the experiences to their consumers. Now, one type of experiences, for example, we're helping Disney when they're streaming a video on their, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's on their Samsung TV or your laptop, that we want to optimize that experience. And now, then there's a digital experience that, if you're going to a sort of say a United or a Walmart website or digital store. Now, how do you really helping that digital experience? Now, that
Mm-hmm.
digital experience being transformed into an agentic experience in the sense that that agentic experience, first of all, internally, the system become an agentic system. The input to it is not just a consumer clicking on the website anymore. But that's one type of access. But you will have a OpenAI agent. You will have a OpenClaw agent, you will have a Perplexity computer, you will have your Neo, so browser, agent. So there will be very, very rich consumer intelligence, consumer interacting patterns working, accessing this like a brand, agentic experience storefront. And then Conviva is helping that, you have to do millions of them. There's tremendous diverse, very time dependent. Also, in that sense, it's very mission, in a sense, mission critical. I mean, you cannot fail the consumers because you're going to frustrate them because there's a real business on the line. So I think that this whole a thousand flowers blossom on the edge, including the open cloud, really introduce tremendous opportunities and also challenges. for the brand to respond to it. And I think that's where Conviva is playing in that space.
Yeah, very interesting. Has your company started adopting OpenClaw to do virtual employee kind of use case yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. We run multiple. There's a personal. We have a many person use OpenCloud on our personal devices, and also in the cloud, separate from work. Within the environment, it's a very, as I said, the security is still a major concern. So I think if you look at the cloud co-work, right, that's basically the enterprise version of the agent. It's right now there. You can see it has a lot of benefits. So to answer your question, open cloud is not being used within the sort of the firewall within the Conviva
Because of the security concern,
before the security concern.
right? But your employees, perhaps yourself, have been playing around OpenClaw
Yes,
on the
absolutely.
home device, that sort of things.
Yes, because it's
Interesting.
a technologist. I mean, you just have to use it. And also, we actually set up what I call open cloud lab because it's a way of saying it. Because we are helping our customers eventually gonna um, to deal with this is a new consumer to my customers, right? So we need to really understand its behaviors and how it's interacting with the digital surfaces.
That's
So this
true.
is
That's true. Because if everyone rely on OpenCloud to do anything and everything, your solution has to adapt to that world too, right?
yes,
Cool. One last question. This is a question I always ask for the new show guests, because we talk about technology, we talk about solutions, we talk about new browser. But there's one thing that's pretty fundamental, right? We're going through a pretty big technology transformation, AI transformation. Because of that, many people, or I would even say potentially everyone, is worried about, hey, how am I going to be, am I still going to be relevant? How am I going to be more relevant? Am I still going to have a job? And then what to do with, what happened to my kids' generation, right? They're still in school, or my kid just graduated from a bachelor degree, but, it looks like this generation, much harder for them to find a job, whether in the computer science area or outside the computer science area. So it sounds like, it's not sounds like it is absolutely a big topic. My question in twofold. One is, what's your advice to people still in the school, like a college student, or maybe even high school, or about to graduate? Like for younger generation, what do they need to do to prepare for this AI transformation?
yeah, I can give a very long answer because I'm both a parent and a teacher. But let me try to be concise here. I think there's one is independent of the AI, then there's one specific to AI. I think the independent AI is human. I think we need to, I always say intangible is more important than tangibles. So what's intangibles? I can adapt to change. I have courage. I'm curious. So those things you cannot measure, that's intangibles. The one, I'm a 180 IQ. I can swimming, really well. I can play tennis at whatever level. Those tangible stuff. I think to me, intangible is more important than tangibles. That's the first thing. So
Interesting.
it's a human being in this society. Let's really make sure we're not just robots. We're not just machines. We're not just measured by certain quantitative metrics. We're interesting person, have tremendous talents, internal potential. So that make sure that is preserved and unleashed. So that's number one. I think intangible is
Well,
more important than tangible. Yeah. And I think that in the AI world, even more so, I think that used to be, I remember, so you were introducing Mr. Hui, he's an expert in computer networks. That's an expertise description of me. And then there are engineers who are really, really good at, say embedded system. They're engineer really good Rust programming. There's engineer really good compilers. So you have tremendous depth. The problem here is, I think the depth, the advantage of depth was going to disappear. So I think what we have is in the AI, what we call orchestration, right? You need to use all those tools. So now that means you need skills that you learn fast, you're going to use the tool, learn fast. And then you need to be able to synthesize the tools, AI is part of it, to accomplish a complex task end to end, right? You talk about, sort of, I think in your shows, you talk about whatever one person startup, right? Right. So startup is a complex enterprise, whether it's doing and do other things, but now I can utilize my capabilities a lot more. That means I need to learn more things, whether you're in art, whether in, you're, in healthcare, whether you're sort of in tech industry. I think that now is a jack of all trades, generalist. And again, not in the sense I know all the trades, is that I can pick up all the trades very quickly with AI as a trade, AI to do all the trades. I think those skills are a lot more important.
Interesting. And the other side of the equation, but the similar question from the audience, actually. The exact question is, will we still have jobs after OpenClaw?
I think so. I believe so. Some of them held a more pessimistic view. There's sort of is computer can take away AI, take away all the jobs. I'm an optimist, and I think that it will fundamentally extending human potential. That just means we can actually amplify our potential more. And every individual, there's you can say God gave you the natural gift. Now all of a sudden you didn't know that you have them. Now you can amplify dramatically. And I think that a job can mean two things. Job means is a way of living, but job also is a way I can pursue, make an impact to the world. I think this could help you to do both.
Interesting. So basically, my takeaway from this part of the question is, one, you believe humans are going to have more jobs. It's just to extend ourselves, make us better rather than make us obsolete, right? That's sort of the one. But the other thing, it's pretty fascinating you said that way, because we, as a leader, as a manager, I was trained for years that if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. But you are saying that if you can measure it, it may not be the right skill in the AI era. So you want to kind of you said that's more intangible, right? Curiosity, maybe others, right? Not just a measurable skill set. Because what you said, it makes sense to me, because potentially, perhaps, or likely, AI is good at it. AI is not good at it, things you cannot measure it. Thank you, Professor Zhang. This is a wonderful conversation, and hopefully we will absorb your wisdom another time.
Yes, thank you very much. Really, really enjoyed with you. Looking forward to the next time.
Yes. Okay. Have a nice weekend.